Marcus Chen stood at the edge of the spaceport terminal, watching the familiar blue sky of Earth through reinforced windows. After 8 years fighting in the Outer Rim conflicts, home felt like an alien world. The gravity felt wrong, too light after months on high-gravity mining stations where humanity had carved out footholds against hostile alien forces. His reflection in the glass showed a man barely recognizable from the scrawny teenager who had left this planet behind. The neural implants along his temple pulsed softly, processing the overwhelming sensory data of a world not trying to kill him. No radiation alerts, no atmospheric warnings, no enemy movement trackers painting targets across his vision. Just the gentle hum of civilian life, punctuated by the laughter of children and the mundane conversations of people who had never seen a plasma rifle tear through ship hull plating. His duffel bag contained everything he owned. Military-grade equipment that could level city blocks, medical nanites that could heal wounds in minutes, and combat stims that could keep a human fighting for days without rest. Standard issue for any soldier returning from the frontier wars where humanity had proven, once again, that they belonged among the stars despite what every other species claimed. The shuttle ride to New Haven felt surreal. The city had grown during his absence, sprawling upward with the characteristic human disregard for aesthetic harmony that other species found so disturbing. Humans built for function, for expansion, for the simple joy of occupying space. It was a middle finger to the galaxy's more civilized races who preferred their neat, ordered colonies. Marcus had enlisted the day after graduation, driven by a combination of patriotic fervor and the desperate need to escape the suffocating small-town atmosphere where he had spent 4 years as a target. High school had been a special kind of hell for a kid who preferred books to sports, coding to parties, and who had the misfortune of being smaller than his tormentors until his growth spurt hit senior year. The recruitment officer had painted a picture of adventure and purpose, of humanity's expansion into a hostile galaxy where quick thinking and adaptability mattered more than social hierarchies. What she hadn't mentioned was how war changed a person, how watching friends die in alien soil carved out pieces of your soul, or how killing became as natural as breathing when survival was the only goal that mattered. The taxi dropped him at his childhood home, a modest house in the suburbs that looked exactly as he remembered. His parents had moved to a retirement colony on Mars 3 years ago, leaving the house to him in their will. The key still worked, though the lock felt fragile under fingers that had learned to operate blast doors and security systems designed to withstand orbital bombardment. Inside, dust motes danced in afternoon sunlight streaming through windows that had never been reinforced against energy weapons. Family photos lined the hallway, showing a progression from awkward childhood through increasingly uncomfortable teenage years. His senior portrait showed a thin face marked by poorly concealed bruises, a reminder of the daily gauntlet he had run through halls filled with predators who wore Letterman jackets instead of battle armor. The invitation had arrived through official military channels, forwarded from his parents' old address. Lincoln High School's 15-year reunion, complete with a glossy brochure featuring photos of successful graduates and promises of rekindling old friendships. The committee had tracked him down across light years of space, their persistence both admirable and naive. Marcus set the invitation on the kitchen counter and stared at it, while his enhanced reflexes cataloged potential threats in the environment. Old habits died hard when those habits had kept you alive in places where the atmosphere could kill you, and the local wildlife considered humans a delicacy. The reunion was in 3 days, enough time to decide whether facing his past was worth the emotional ammunition it would cost. He unpacked methodically, each item placed with military precision. The combat suit went in the bedroom closet, its adaptive camouflage currently set to neutral gray. The weapon cases were secured in the basement, their biometric locks keyed to his DNA and retinal pattern. The medical kit found a place in the bathroom, its contents capable of treating everything from radiation poisoning to alien toxins. The shower felt like luxury after years of sonic cleaners and chemical baths. Real water, heated to the perfect temperature, washing away the accumulated grime of interstellar travel. In the mirror afterward, Marcus examined the changes 8 years of warfare had carved into his body. Scars from energy weapons marked his torso, while subdermal armor plating created subtle ridges along his arms and shoulders. His eyes had been replaced with military-grade, Optical implants that could see across multiple spectrums and calculate ballistic trajectories in real time. He was no longer the frightened boy who had been shoved into lockers and humiliated in front of laughing crowds. The galaxy had forged him into something harder, something capable of standing against alien horrors that would drive most humans insane with terror. Yet the thought of walking into a high school gymnasium filled with familiar faces triggered anxiety responses his combat training couldn't suppress. That evening, Marcus walked through the town center, noting the changes that civilian prosperity had brought. New shops, updated infrastructure, and the subtle signs of a world that had benefited from humanity's expansion into space. Rare minerals flowed back from the frontier, along with technological advances purchased with blood and determination. Earth had grown richer while its children died on distant worlds, proving humanity's worth one battlefield at a time. He stopped at Murphy's Diner, a place that had somehow survived the changes. The elderly owner recognized him despite the transformations, welcoming him with the kind of warmth small towns reserved for returning heroes. Over coffee and pie that tasted like childhood, Marcus learned about classmates who had stayed behind, who had built normal lives while he had been learning to kill aliens with his bare hands. Some had become teachers, others had started families or taken over family businesses. A few had left for college and never returned, scattered across Earth's growing colonial empire. And some, he learned with grim satisfaction, had peaked in high school and spent the intervening years watching their dreams crumble under the weight of reality. The diner's television showed news from the frontier, reports of humanity's latest victories against the hegemony forces that had tried to contain human expansion. Young reporters spoke of heroic actions and strategic victories, but Marcus saw the sanitized version that never mentioned the smell of burned flesh or the sound wounded soldiers made when the morphine ran out. Walking home under stars that no longer seemed impossibly distant, Marcus made his decision. He would attend the reunion, not to reconnect with the past, but to close a chapter that had been left unfinished. The scared boy who had left this town was dead, replaced by something the galaxy had learned to fear. It was time his former classmates learned what humanity was capable of when pushed to its limits. The next morning brought news that changed everything. Marcus was reviewing intelligence reports on his personal tablet when an emergency bulletin flashed across every screen in the house. The hegemony had launched a surprise attack on the Titan mining colonies, humanity's most important source of rare Earth elements needed for faster-than-light travel. 3 million civilians were trapped behind enemy lines while the Colonial Defense Force fought a desperate holding action. Marcus felt the familiar surge of adrenaline as his combat implants automatically began analyzing the tactical situation. Titan was strategically crucial. Its loss would cripple human expansion for decades. More importantly, it was home to thousands of military families, including several soldiers from his old unit. The thought of his brothers in arms facing annihilation while he contemplated high school politics felt obscene. His secure communication device chimed with an encrypted message from Admiral Rodriguez, his former commanding officer. The text was brief but loaded with meaning. All leave canceled. Report to nearest recruitment center for emergency deployment. Humanity needs its best. The subtext was clear. This wasn't a request. Marcus stared at the message for exactly 30 seconds before muscle memory took over. His civilian clothes were replaced with military utilities in minutes, his gear organized with practiced efficiency. The reunion invitation went into the trash without a second thought. Some things mattered more than settling old scores with teenage bullies. The local recruitment center buzzed with activity, as reservists and active duty personnel responded to the call. Marcus's military identification triggered immediate attention from the duty officer, a young lieutenant who looked barely old enough to shave. The kid's eyes widened when Marcus's service record populated on his screen, displaying 8 years of continuous combat operations and a list of commendations that read like a history of humanity's greatest military victories. "Sir, transport leaves for Luna Station in 2 hours," the lieutenant stammered. "Priority boarding for special operations personnel." Marcus nodded and turned to leave, then paused. "Lieutenant, do me a favor. If anyone asks about Marcus Chen attending the Lincoln High reunion this weekend, tell them he had more important things to do." The spaceport felt different this time, charged with the urgency of military mobilization. Civilian traffic had been diverted to make room for troop transports and supply ships. Families said hurried goodbyes to soldiers heading back to the frontier, their faces showing the strain of another separation. Children who had grown accustomed to having their parents home would once again learn to fear the sound of official vehicles in their driveways. On the transport, Marcus found himself surrounded by familiar faces from various units. Sergeant Williams from the 3rd Assault Battalion, whose expertise with demolitions had saved Marcus's life during the siege of Proxima Station. Lieutenant Torres from Intelligence, whose ability to decode alien communications had prevented more ambushes than anyone could count. Captain Morrison from the Navy, whose ship had provided orbital support during humanity's darkest hours. They were an ugly bunch by galactic standards, scarred, cybernetically enhanced and carrying enough personal weapons to arm a small militia. Other species would see them as examples of humanity's barbaric nature, but Marcus saw family. These were the people who understood what it meant to stand at the edge of extinction and refuse to blink. The briefing came through on encrypted channels during the 3-day journey to the staging area. Titan had fallen faster than anyone anticipated, the hegemony's new gravity weapons proving devastatingly effective against the colony's defensive grid. Worse, intercepted communications suggested this was just the opening move in a larger campaign designed to push humanity back to their home system. Marcus studied the tactical data with professional interest. The hegemony had learned from their previous defeats, adapting their strategies to counter human advantages in close combat and technological adaptation. They were using human psychology against itself, targeting civilian populations to force military responses that would spread Earth's forces too thin. It was a sound strategy that might have worked against any other species. What the aliens consistently failed to understand was that threatening human civilians didn't make their military more cautious. It made them absolutely savage. The galaxy was about to receive another lesson in why you never backed a human into a corner. During the journey, Marcus received an unexpected message through civilian channels. His old classmate Janet Morrison had somehow tracked down his military contact information and sent a personal note about the reunion. She had been one of the few students who hadn't participated in his daily humiliation, maintaining a careful neutrality that had allowed her to witness everything without becoming a target herself. Her message was carefully worded, expressing hope that he could attend and apologizing for how things were back then. She mentioned that several classmates had expressed interest in seeing him, particularly after news of his military service had spread through their small social network. The subtext was clear. Even his former tormentors wanted to claim association with someone who had made something of himself. Marcus deleted the message without responding. The boy who had craved their acceptance was dead, killed somewhere between his first firefight and the moment he had realized that his former classmates' opinions mattered less than the lives of his fellow soldiers. Their approval or forgiveness was irrelevant when measured against the responsibilities of defending human civilization. The staging area at Luna Station was a carefully controlled chaos of military preparation. Thousands of personnel moved with purpose through corridors designed for efficiency rather than comfort. Marcus's unit was assigned to the second wave assault, their mission to establish a beachhead while the first wave engaged the main hegemony forces. His equipment loadout reflected 8 years of accumulated preferences and battlefield innovations. The standard plasma rifle had been modified with alien technology salvaged from previous campaigns. Its output increased by 30%, while maintaining reliability under extreme conditions. His armor incorporated adaptive camouflage systems reverse-engineered from captured hegemony gear, turning their own technology against them. In the weapons bay, Marcus ran into an unexpected familiar face. Tommy Bradford, his worst tormentor from high school, stood in line for equipment issue wearing the uniform of a supply clerk. The years had not been kind. His once muscular frame had gone soft, his face showing the wear of someone who had peaked early and never recovered. Their eyes met across the crowded space, recognition flickering between them. Tommy's expression cycled through surprise, nervousness, and something that might have been shame. He opened his mouth as if to speak, then seemed to think better of it when he noticed the rank insignia on Marcus's uniform and the obvious deference other soldiers showed him. Marcus felt nothing. No anger, no satisfaction, no desire for confrontation or closure. The man standing 20 feet away was a stranger wearing the face of someone who had once seemed impossibly important. The scared teenager who had fantasized about this moment was as dead as the boy who had been shoved into lockers and mocked in hallways. Instead of approaching, Marcus simply nodded once, the professional acknowledgement one soldier gave another, and continued with his preparations. Tommy Bradford was no longer significant enough to warrant emotional investment. The galaxy had taught Marcus to reserve his hatred for enemies who actually mattered. The final briefing came 12 hours before deployment. Admiral Rodriguez addressed the assembled forces via hologram, her weathered face showing the strain of coordinating humanity's response. The situation on Titan was worse than initially reported. The hegemony was using human civilians as shields, making orbital bombardment impossible. It would have to be retaken the hard way, block by block, building by building. Ladies and gentlemen, the Admiral concluded, the galaxy is watching. They expect us to fold, to negotiate, to accept our place as a minor species grateful for whatever scraps the major powers allow us. Instead, we're going to show them what happens when you threaten human families. We're going to remind them why they fear us. Marcus checked his equipment one final time, then settled in for the last sleep he might ever get. In a few hours, he would be fighting for humanity's future, while his former classmates gathered in a high school gymnasium to relive their glory days. The irony wasn't lost on him, but it no longer mattered. He had found his real family among the stars, forged in combat and tempered by sacrifice. Everything else was just noise. The assault on Titan began at 0400 ship time, with Marcus's dropship screaming through the thin atmosphere toward the industrial complex that housed 300,000 civilian workers. The hegemony had chosen their target well. Titan's gravity wells made orbital bombardment impossible, without destroying the very facilities humanity needed to reclaim. It would have to be done with boots on the ground and superior human stubbornness. Marcus felt the familiar calm that settled over him before combat, his enhanced nervous system automatically regulating stress hormones, while his tactical implants processed incoming data streams. 23 other soldiers shared the cramped dropship, each representing years of training and battlefield experience. They were humanity's answer to the galaxy's belief that humans were too primitive for modern warfare. The ship shuddered as hegemony anti-aircraft fire found their range. Emergency lighting bathed the cabin in red as the pilot fought to maintain control through evasive maneuvers that would have liquefied an unaugmented human. Marcus's inner ear had been replaced with military-grade balance systems, allowing him to remain stable while lesser species would have been unconscious from the acceleration forces. Through the tactical feed, he watched other dropships taking fire. The hegemony had learned from previous encounters, positioning their defenses to maximize human casualties during the landing phase. What they hadn't learned was that humans considered acceptable losses to be whatever it took to complete the mission. The mathematical certainty of death had never stopped a human advance. His squad hit the ground running, plasma fire immediately lighting up the industrial complex as hegemony forces engaged from prepared positions. Marcus's rifle spoke in controlled bursts, each shot guided by targeting systems that had been refined through 8 years of combat. Alien warriors fell with methodical precision as his unit advanced through cover that would have stopped conventional forces. The enemy had positioned themselves well, using human civilian workers as shields while maintaining overlapping fields of fire. Standard military doctrine would have called for a siege, slowly grinding down the defenders while minimizing collateral damage. Human doctrine was different. When civilians were threatened, acceptable losses went out the window and solutions became more creative. Marcus's unit split into 3-man teams, each approaching the complex from different vectors. His enhanced vision pierced the artificial fog the aliens had deployed, revealing defensive positions that relied on superior technology rather than tactical innovation. The hegemony made excellent weapons but poor soldiers, their culture emphasizing technical superiority over the kind of desperate creativity that kept humans alive when everything went wrong. The first breach came when Sergeant Williams detonated a shaped charge that punched through the complex's reinforced walls. Marcus was through the gap before the debris had settled, his rifle acquiring targets with inhuman speed. 3 hegemony warriors died before they could react to the sudden assault, their advanced armor useless against weapons designed to penetrate starship hulls. Inside the complex, the true horror of the situation became clear. Human workers had been herded into central areas, forced to continue operating the facility under alien supervision. Men and women who had signed up to mine rare Earth elements for humanity's expansion found themselves working to supply the very forces trying to destroy human civilization. Their faces showed the peculiar combination of terror and rage that characterized humans pushed. Beyond their breaking point, Marcus's tactical implants automatically tagged friendly and hostile targets. While his squad moved through the facility, the hegemony had made a critical error in their understanding of human psychology. They assumed that the presence of civilians would make human soldiers more cautious. Instead, it made them more focused, more precise, and infinitely more dangerous. The rescue operation proceeded with mechanical efficiency. Each hegemony position was identified, isolated, and eliminated with the kind of ruthless precision that had made humans feared across the galaxy. The aliens fought well by their standards, but their standards were those of species that had never faced extinction and learned to thrive in its shadow. During a brief lull in the fighting, Marcus received an unexpected communication through his personal channel. Someone had managed to contact him using civilian emergency frequencies. The message routed through military networks due to his current operational status. The caller identification showed a name from his past: David Morrison, Janet's brother and one of his most persistent high school tormentors. Marcus? Jesus, man. I can't believe I got through to you. Listen, I'm calling from the reunion. Everyone's here asking about you. We heard you were in the military, but nobody knew you were some kind of special forces badass. Look, I know we gave you a hard time back in school, but that was just kid stuff, you know? We'd love to have you here if you can make it. Marcus listened to the entire message while systematically eliminating hegemony defenders who had taken position in the facility's control room. His rifle never wavered as David's voice continued, oblivious to the fact that he was interrupting a life-or-death battle for humanity's future. The contrast between the trivial concerns of his former classmates and his current reality was so stark it bordered on surreal. The OE message ended just as Marcus put a plasma bolt through the chest of the last alien in the control room. He deleted the communication without responding and turned his attention to freeing the human workers who had been forced to operate the facility's extraction equipment. Their relief at seeing human soldiers was palpable, though many showed signs of abuse that would require significant medical attention. As his squad secured the control room, Marcus's enhanced hearing picked up additional hegemony forces moving through the facility's lower levels. The aliens were regrouping for a counterattack, probably hoping to retake the control room and use it as a bargaining chip. What they didn't understand was that humans didn't negotiate when their people were threatened. They escalated until the threat was eliminated. The counterattack came 2 hours later, with hegemony shock troops equipped with the latest in alien battle technology. Energy shields deflected conventional weapons while their powered armor multiplied their strength and speed. Against most species, it would have been overwhelming force. Against humans who had spent years adapting to whatever the galaxy threw at them, it was just another problem to solve. Marcus's solution involved repurposing the facility's mining equipment. Industrial plasma cutters designed to slice through asteroid rock proved remarkably effective against alien armor, while the facility's gravity manipulation systems could be reversed to create localized anomalies that disrupted enemy formations. Humans had a talent for weaponizing anything they could get their hands on. The battle turned into a running engagement through the facility's corridors, with Marcus's squad using their knowledge of human engineering to turn the environment against their attackers. Emergency bulkheads became barriers, atmospheric systems became weapons, and the facility's own defensive grid was reprogrammed to target alien biosignatures. By the time reinforcements arrived, Marcus's unit had not only secured the facility, but had captured enough hegemony equipment to outfit a full battalion. The aliens had learned another expensive lesson about human adaptability, while the rescued workers were already making plans to return to their jobs once the threat was eliminated. Humans didn't abandon their posts just because someone threatened them. The operation was declared a success within 18 hours of the initial landing. Titan was back under human control, its production facilities intact and its workers safe. The hegemony forces that had seemed so threatening just days before were either dead, captured, or fleeing toward the outer system. Another victory for human determination in the face of galactic disapproval. Standing in the facility's observation deck, watching human ships restore order to the system, Marcus felt the satisfaction that came from a job well done. His personal communication device showed 17 missed calls from his hometown, all from numbers he didn't recognize. Apparently, word of his involvement in the Titan operation had made it back to New Haven, where his former classmates were suddenly very interested in reconnecting. He deleted all the messages without listening to them. The boy who had craved their approval was gone, replaced by someone who understood that real acceptance came from the people who trusted you with their lives. His classmates could have their reunion. He had found his real family among the stars, forged in fire and tempered by necessity. The transport back to Luna Station was quiet, filled with soldiers who understood the cost of victory. They had saved Titan and protected human expansion, but the price had been paid in blood and sacrifice. As they traveled through space toward their next assignment, Marcus realized he had finally found peace with his past. Not through confrontation or forgiveness, but through the simple recognition that some things were too small to matter anymore. 3 weeks after the Titan operation, Marcus found himself back on Earth for mandatory decompression leave. The psychological evaluation teams insisted that even enhanced soldiers needed time to process combat trauma, though Marcus suspected they were more concerned about preventing another incident like the one on Kepler 442, where a returning veteran had accidentally hospitalized 6 civilians during a routine traffic stop. The transition from military efficiency to civilian chaos never got easier. Luna Station operated on military time with military precision, where every person knew their role and executed it flawlessly. Earth ran on 1,000 different schedules, with people who had never faced life or death decisions making arbitrary rules about parking meters and permit applications. After fighting for humanity's survival, dealing with a DMV clerk felt like cruel and unusual punishment. His parents had returned from their Martian retirement to welcome him home, their faces showing the peculiar mixture of pride and concern that characterized military families. They had aged during his absence, the reality of interstellar communication delays making every news report about frontier conflicts a potential notification of loss. Loving a soldier meant living with the constant fear that the next knock on the door would bring a folded flag and formal condolences. The house felt smaller than he remembered, though his enhanced spatial awareness confirmed it was exactly the same dimensions. Military life had changed his perception of space. After months in cramped ship quarters punctuated by the vast emptiness of alien battlefields, domestic architecture seemed almost quaint. His bedroom still contained remnants of his teenage years, including a computer that would have been considered primitive even before his enlistment. Local news coverage of the Titan operation had made Marcus something of a celebrity in New Haven. The boy who had been dismissed as a loser was now featured on magazine covers and interview programs. His high school photograph contrasted with images of him in full combat gear. The narrative was irresistible to media outlets. Local nobody becomes galactic hero, proving that anyone could make something of themselves with enough determination. The attention made him uncomfortable in ways that alien gunfire never had. Combat was straightforward. Identify threats, eliminate them, protect your team. Civilian social interaction involved navigating unspoken rules and hidden agendas that made hegemony battle tactics seem refreshingly honest. At least when aliens tried to kill him, they did it directly instead of through passive-aggressive small talk. His former classmates had begun reaching out through every possible channel. Social media requests, phone calls to his parents, messages through the local VFW chapter. The entire high school social hierarchy was suddenly desperate to claim association with someone who had achieved genuine accomplishment. The same people who had made his teenage years miserable now wanted selfies and autographs to post online. Marcus ignored them all, focusing instead on the official debriefing sessions that would determine his next assignment. The hegemony threat was far from over. Intelligence suggested they were massing forces for a major offensive against human colonies in the Vega system. Earth's military command was already planning the response, and officers with Marcus's experience were in high demand for what promised to be the largest conflict since the First Contact Wars. The reunion committee, however, proved remarkably persistent. When direct contact failed, they escalated to involving local authorities. Mayor Thompson, who had been 2 years ahead of Marcus in school, personally visited his parents' house to request his attendance. The reasoning was economic. Marcus's presence would generate media attention that could boost tourism and attract businesses to invest in their small town. Think about it. Son, the mayor explained while Marcus's parents served coffee in their best china, you've become a symbol of what our community can produce. Your presence at the reunion would show the world that New Haven raises heroes. It's about more than just a high school party. It's about inspiring the next generation. Marcus listened politely while mentally calculating how many hegemony battlecruisers could be disabled with the energy his former classmates were expending on this social event. The mayor's appeal to civic duty was well crafted but ultimately irrelevant. Marcus had already served his community by ensuring its continued existence in the face of alien aggression. Everything else was just noise. His refusal was diplomatic but firm. He had military obligations that prevented his attendance, though he wished them well with their celebration. The mayor left disappointed but understanding, recognizing the tone of someone accustomed to making final decisions about life and death situations. Some conversations didn't allow for negotiation. The next day brought unexpected visitors to the Chen household. A small convoy of vehicles pulled up to the modest suburban home, their occupants emerging with the kind of coordinated precision that screamed military training. Marcus recognized several faces from his unit, including Captain Morrison, whose ship had provided orbital support during the Titan operation. "Sorry to bother you during leave," Marcus, the captain said, her expression serious, "but we've got a situation that requires your particular expertise. Intelligence has identified a hegemony infiltration cell operating somewhere in this region. Their mission appears to be gathering intelligence on human military personnel, particularly those who have distinguished themselves in recent conflicts." Marcus felt his combat instincts activate, his enhanced senses automatically scanning the environment for potential threats. The idea that enemy agents might be operating in his hometown added a new dimension to his relationship with the place. Suddenly, his former classmates' interest in his military service took on a more sinister potential meaning. The briefing continued in his parents' living room. Military personnel spread tactical displays across furniture that had hosted countless family dinners. The infiltration cell was small but sophisticated, using advanced technology to blend into human society while gathering intelligence on military capabilities and personnel records. Their primary targets were veterans with access to classified information. "The timing is suspicious," Captain Morrison explained. "This reunion of yours has attracted considerable attention, both from media and from parties we can't identify. We need someone on the inside, someone who belongs there but can recognize threats that civilian security would miss." Marcus understood immediately. His refusal to attend the reunion had inadvertently created a security gap that could be exploited by enemy agents. His presence was needed not as a social obligation but as a military necessity. The scared teenager who had been bullied in these halls was being asked to return as their protector, whether they deserved it or not. The irony was perfect and terrible. After years of being dismissed and excluded, he was now being asked to risk his life to protect the same people who had made his adolescence miserable. The mission parameters were clear: attend the reunion, identify potential security threats, and neutralize any enemy agents before they could complete their intelligence gathering. His parents listened to the briefing with the stoic acceptance that characterized military families. They understood that their son's service came with obligations that superseded personal preferences or family time. The boy who had left home to escape his tormentors was returning as their guardian, armed with skills and knowledge that would ensure their continued safety. Preparation for the mission began immediately. Marcus's reunion outfit would be equipped with concealed surveillance equipment and defensive systems that could neutralize threats without alarming civilian attendees. His high school identification would be updated with current biometric data, while military intelligence would monitor all communications in and out of the venue. The reunion committee was contacted with news of his last-minute decision to attend, their excitement palpable even through official channels. They had no idea that their celebration had become the centerpiece of a counterintelligence operation, or that their former classmate was returning not as a guest, but as their protector. The scared boy they remembered was gone, replaced by something the galaxy had learned to fear. As Marcus prepared for what might be his most dangerous mission yet, he reflected on the strange path that had brought him back to Lincoln High School. He had left to escape his tormentors and found purpose defending humanity against alien threats. Now he was returning to defend those same tormentors against enemies they couldn't even recognize. It was, he supposed, what growing up actually meant. The Lincoln High School gymnasium had been transformed for the reunion, decorated with banners celebrating 15 years of achievements and memories. Marcus arrived precisely on time, his civilian clothes concealing enough military hardware to level a city block. His enhanced senses immediately began cataloging potential threats, while his social protocols engaged to maintain the appearance of a returning classmate. The first person to recognize him was Janet Morrison, her face lighting up with genuine warmth as she approached through the crowd. Time had been kind to her. She carried herself with the confidence of someone who had found success in life without losing her essential humanity. Unlike many of their classmates, her interest in seeing him seemed authentic rather than opportunistic. "Marcus, I can't believe you actually made it," she said, her smile faltering slightly as she noticed something different in his eyes. "You look intense. Military life must really change a person." Marcus engaged his social subroutines, projecting the relaxed demeanor of someone attending a casual social event rather than conducting a counterintelligence operation. His tactical implants continued their environmental scan while he made small talk, identifying exit routes and potential defensive positions throughout the gymnasium. 8 years in space will do that to you, he replied, accepting her offered hug while his enhanced reflexes automatically assessed her for concealed weapons or surveillance devices. "How have you been, Janet? Last I heard you were studying architecture." Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of David Morrison, Janet's brother and one of Marcus's most persistent high school tormentors. The years had been less kind to David. His athletic frame had gone soft, and his eyes held the desperate quality of someone who had peaked early and spent the intervening years watching his dreams crumble. His approach triggered automatic threat assessment protocols in Marcus's enhanced nervous system. "Marcus Chen, as I live and breathe," David said, his tone carrying forced joviality that didn't reach his eyes. "Man, you really showed us all, didn't you? From class nerd to galactic war hero. That's quite a transformation." Marcus studied David's face while his implants analyzed micro-expressions for signs of deception or hostility. The man was nervous but appeared genuinely human, his discomfort stemming from embarrassment rather than alien infiltration. Still, Marcus filed the interaction for later analysis while maintaining his civilian cover. The reunion progressed with the predictable rhythms of such events. Former classmates clustered in groups that roughly corresponded to their high school social hierarchies, though success and failure had reshuffled the rankings in unexpected ways. The star quarterback was selling insurance while the quiet girl from chemistry class had become a successful engineer. Life had a way of rendering teenage status irrelevant. Marcus moved through the crowds with practiced ease, his enhanced hearing picking up fragments of conversation, while his visual processors cataloged faces and behaviors. Most of his former classmates seemed genuinely pleased to see him, their earlier cruelty forgotten or rationalized as youthful indiscretion. The few who still carried grudges were easy to identify by their body language and vocal stress patterns. The threat materialized during the dinner portion of the evening. Marcus's attention was drawn to a man he didn't recognize, someone who claimed to be a substitute teacher from their senior year, but whose story didn't match school records his military access could instantly verify. The individual moved with the controlled precision of someone with combat training, his eyes scanning the room with professional interest rather than nostalgic affection. Marcus activated his emergency beacon while maintaining his civilian facade, alerting his backup team to potential hostile contact. The suspect had positioned himself near the room's main communication hub, where he could monitor electronic traffic while appearing to simply enjoy the party. His interest in the reunion seemed focused on gathering intelligence rather than celebrating shared memories. The confirmation came when Marcus's enhanced vision detected the faint outline of alien technology integrated into the suspect's clothing. Hegemony infiltration gear was sophisticated but not perfect. Human sensor technology had evolved to counter their advantages through 8 years of continuous warfare. The enemy agent had blown his cover by underestimating human technological adaptation. Marcus began moving toward the suspect's position, his path seemingly casual as he stopped to chat with various classmates. Each conversation served a tactical purpose, either providing cover for his approach or gathering intelligence about potential additional threats. His high school training in navigating social hierarchies proved unexpectedly useful for military infiltration techniques. Tommy Bradford intercepted him halfway across the room, his face flushed with alcohol and emotions he had apparently been nursing since graduation. Marcus's former tormentor had declined significantly. His once imposing frame had gone to fat, and his eyes held the bitter resentment of someone who blamed others for his failures. The confrontation Marcus had once dreamed about was finally happening at the worst possible moment. Well, Tommy slurred, positioning himself to block Marcus's path. If it isn't the class nerd all grown up and fancy, you think you're better than us now, don't you? Think your little war games make you special? Marcus's tactical situation became complicated. The enemy agent was moving toward what appeared to be a data extraction point, while Tommy's drunken confrontation threatened to expose the ongoing operation. His enhanced reflexes could eliminate both threats in seconds, but civilian casualties were unacceptable in a crowded venue. Subtlety was required. "I think we've all grown up, Tommy," Marcus replied, his voice carrying the quiet authority of someone accustomed to command. "We're not in high school anymore. Some things matter more than old grudges." Tommy's response was predictably belligerent, his voice rising as suppressed resentment boiled over. He grabbed Marcus's arm, apparently intending to provoke a physical confrontation that would vindicate years of personal failure. What he didn't expect was the casual ease with which Marcus broke his grip, using techniques learned from fighting aliens twice human size. The brief physical contact allowed Marcus to inject Tommy with a mild sedative from his medical kit, causing him to suddenly feel dizzy and disoriented. To observers, it would appear that Tommy had simply drunk too much and needed to sit down. Marcus guided him to a nearby chair while smoothly continuing his approach toward the enemy agent. The hegemony operative had noticed the disturbance and was beginning to move toward an exit, his mission apparently complete. Marcus realized he had minutes before the alien escaped with intelligence that could compromise human military operations. The scared teenager who had once been helpless against bullies was about to demonstrate what 8 years of military training could accomplish. Marcus's approach was textbook perfect. He used the crowd for concealment while maintaining constant visual contact with his target. His enhanced reflexes allowed him to navigate through dancing couples and conversation groups without appearing to hurry. To casual observers, he was simply another reunion attendee moving through the party. The interception occurred near the gymnasium's emergency exit, away from the main crowd. Marcus appeared beside the agent with the silent efficiency of someone trained in close-quarters combat, his hand settling on the alien's shoulder with seemingly friendly familiarity. To onlookers, it would appear to be a casual greeting between acquaintances. "Leaving so soon?" Marcus asked, his voice carrying undertones that only the alien would recognize. "The party's just getting started." The enemy agent's response was swift and professional, his hand moving toward a concealed weapon while his mouth opened to alert potential backup. Marcus was faster, his enhanced reflexes allowing him to disrupt both actions while maintaining the appearance of casual conversation. 8 years of combat experience had taught him that the most effective violence was often the least visible. The takedown was over in seconds, the alien agent unconscious and secured with restraints that appeared to be nothing more than friendly assistance for someone who had suddenly taken ill. Marcus's backup team would handle extraction and interrogation, while he returned to the party as if nothing had happened. Another threat neutralized, another victory for human adaptability. As Marcus rejoined the reunion, he reflected on the strange symmetry of the evening. He had returned to face his past, and instead found himself defending his former tormentors against threats they couldn't even perceive. The scared boy who had left this gymnasium 8 years ago was truly dead, replaced by someone the galaxy had learned to respect and fear in equal measure. The reunion continued without anyone noticing that a hegemony infiltration specialist had been neutralized and extracted from their midst. Marcus returned to the gymnasium floor, his civilian facade intact while his enhanced senses remained alert for additional threats. The mission wasn't complete until the venue was fully secured, and all potential intelligence compromises had been identified. Janet Morrison found him near the memorial wall, where photographs of deceased classmates reminded everyone of mortality's presence even in celebration. 3 faces looked out from frames decorated with flowers and remembrance cards. 2 traffic accidents and 1 industrial mishap that seemed almost quaint compared to the ways Marcus had watched friends die in alien soil. "You seem distracted tonight," Janet observed, her voice carrying genuine concern. I know coming back here can't be easy after everything you've experienced. Are you okay? Marcus studied her face, noting the genuine empathy that had made her one of the few bright spots in his high school experience. His tactical assessment confirmed she was exactly what she appeared to be. A successful architect who had grown into a thoughtful adult without losing her essential kindness. In a room full of people trying to recapture their youth, she had simply matured. Just processing old memories, he replied, which was technically true even if it omitted the part about counterintelligence operations. It's strange being back here after so long. Everything looks the same, but I'm seeing it through different eyes. Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Principal Martinez, who had somehow managed to survive 15 years of educational administration without losing his sense of humor. He approached with the careful enthusiasm of someone who had learned to navigate the complex dynamics of reunion politics while maintaining professional neutrality. Marcus Chen, the principal said, extending his hand with genuine warmth. I have to admit, when I heard about your military service, I wasn't entirely surprised. You always had that quality of quiet determination, though I suspect your old teachers would be amazed at how that determination manifested. Marcus accepted the handshake, while his enhanced senses detected the subtle tension in the man's grip. Principal Martinez was nervous about something, his stress indicators suggesting he was carrying information he wasn't sure how to share. The revelation that followed explained his discomfort. I received a call from federal authorities yesterday, the principal continued, lowering his voice. They asked about your attendance tonight and whether I had noticed anything unusual about our guest list. I don't suppose you know anything about that? Marcus's cover story was prepared and plausible. Military personnel sometimes attracted federal attention due to security clearances and classified assignments. He assured the principal that it was routine monitoring, nothing that should concern civilian administrators. The explanation satisfied Martinez while reinforcing Marcus's legitimate presence at the reunion. As the evening progressed, Marcus identified 2 additional suspects whose behavior patterns suggested possible surveillance or intelligence gathering. Neither showed signs of alien technology, making them either human collaborators or federal agents conducting their own monitoring operation. The complexity of the situation required careful navigation to avoid compromising legitimate security operations. The revelation came during the awards ceremony, when classmates were recognized for various achievements ranging from professional success to community service. Marcus's name was called for military service, prompting enthusiastic applause from an audience that had no idea they were celebrating someone who had just saved their lives. Walking to the stage, Marcus caught sight of a familiar face in the crowd, Colonel Sarah Hayes from Military Intelligence, dressed as someone's guest but obviously conducting her own assessment of the situation. Her presence confirmed that the operation had multiple layers, with various agencies monitoring different aspects of the potential security breach. The brief speech Marcus delivered was carefully crafted to acknowledge his classmates' support while avoiding any specific details about his military service. He thanked the community for the foundation they had provided, diplomatically omitting the part about that foundation consisting largely of learning to survive in hostile environments surrounded by predators. Every challenge I faced here taught me something valuable, he said, looking out at faces that ranged from genuine pride to uncomfortable embarrassment. The difficult times especially prepared me for situations where strength and adaptability were necessary for survival. I'm grateful for all of it. The subtext was lost on most of the audience, but a few faces showed recognition of the deeper meaning. Janet Morrison smiled with understanding, while Tommy Bradford shifted uncomfortably in his seat, still groggy from the sedative but beginning to piece together fragments of their earlier encounter. After the ceremony, Marcus was approached by Mrs. Patterson, his former English teacher, whose sharp eyes had always seen more than she let on. Age had refined her perceptions rather than diminishing them, and her expression suggested she understood that more was happening at this reunion than nostalgic celebration. You've grown into quite an impressive young man. Marcus, she said, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had spent decades reading people, though I suspect tonight has been more complicated than most reunions. Some of our guests seem to have agendas beyond, reminiscing about high school. Marcus felt a flash of respect for the woman who had once encouraged his writing and defended him against administrative pressure to lower academic standards. She had recognized his potential when others saw only a target for harassment, and her perceptiveness remained intact 15 years later. High school reunions can bring out unexpected behaviors in people, he replied carefully. Sometimes the past creates complications that require careful handling. Mrs. Patterson nodded with the understanding of someone who had spent her career navigating complex social dynamics. She had probably identified several of the same anomalies that had caught Marcus's attention, though her interpretation would focus on psychological rather than security implications. The final revelation came as the reunion was winding down, when Marcus received an encrypted message through his tactical communication system. The hegemony agent they had captured was beginning to break under interrogation, revealing intelligence about a larger operation targeting human military personnel across multiple locations. The reunion had been just one node in a network designed to map human command structures and identify key personnel for elimination or recruitment. Marcus's presence had disrupted their intelligence gathering, while providing valuable counterintelligence opportunities. The scared teenager who had once been victimized in these halls had returned as humanity's shield against alien manipulation. As classmates began saying their goodbyes and making promises to stay in touch, Marcus reflected on the strange journey that had brought him back to this place. He had left Lincoln High School as a victim, desperate to escape the daily humiliation that had defined his teenage years. He was leaving as a protector, having defended his former tormentors against threats they couldn't even perceive. The transformation was complete, but not in the way he had once imagined. There had been no dramatic confrontations, no moments of vindication where he proved his worth to people who had dismissed him. Instead, he had simply outgrown the need for their validation, finding purpose and identity in service to something larger than high school social hierarchies. Tommy Bradford made one final approach as Marcus prepared to leave, his movements still unsteady from the sedative but his eyes showing a glimmer of clarity. Whatever he had experienced during their brief encounter had apparently provided some insight into how much things had changed. "Marcus," Tommy said, his voice lacking its earlier belligerence, "I wanted to apologize for earlier. And for high school. I was an ass back then, and I took it out on you because you were an easy target. That wasn't right." Marcus looked at the man who had once seemed so imposing, so capable of inflicting pain and humiliation. Time and poor choices had reduced him to a shadow of his former self, while the victim he had tormented had become something that commanded respect across the galaxy. The reversal was complete, but it brought no satisfaction. "We were all different people back then, Tommy," Marcus replied, his tone carrying neither forgiveness nor condemnation. "What matters is who we choose to be now." The answer seemed to satisfy something in Tommy's expression, allowing him to walk away with a dignity he hadn't possessed in years. Marcus watched him go, feeling neither triumph nor pity, only the quiet satisfaction of a mission completed successfully. 3 months after the reunion, Marcus stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance watching the hegemony fleet assemble near the Vega colonies. The intelligence gathered from the captured agent had led to the discovery of a massive invasion force, confirming humanity's worst fears about alien intentions. The reunion operation had been just the beginning of a campaign that would determine whether humans remained a free species or became vassals to alien overlords. Admiral Rodriguez addressed the assembled fleet commanders through secure channels, her weathered face showing the strain of coordinating humanity's largest military response since the first contact wars. The hegemony had committed their primary battle fleet to this offensive, believing that human expansion could be permanently crippled with one decisive blow. They were about to learn why that was a dangerous assumption. "Ladies and gentlemen," the Admiral began, "intelligence indicates the enemy believes this will be their final victory over human ambitions. They've analyzed our industrial capacity, our population growth, and our technological advancement. According to their calculations, we should surrender rather than face annihilation." Marcus smiled grimly as he listened to the briefing. The aliens had made the same mistake that every enemy of humanity eventually made. They had confused human civilization with other species that valued survival over freedom. What they failed to understand was that humans would rather die fighting than live as subjects, a lesson the galaxy had been learning for 8 years. The fleet that surrounded Marcus represented the pinnacle of human engineering and determination, Ships that had been hastily constructed in orbital shipyards now bristled with weapon systems, reverse-engineered from captured alien technology. Human adaptability had turned every enemy advantage into a tool for their own destruction, a process that accelerated with each conflict. His personal communication device chimed with an encrypted message from Earth. Janet Morrison had somehow acquired his military contact information and sent a brief note thanking him for attending the reunion. She mentioned that several classmates had been asking about him, particularly after news reports about the upcoming battle began mentioning his name among the fleet commanders. Marcus deleted the message without responding, though he found himself thinking about the strange path that had brought him from high school victim to fleet commander. The scared teenager who had been pushed around in Lincoln High's corridors was now responsible for the lives of 30,000 crew members and the defense of human civilization itself. The transformation was complete, measured not in personal vindication but in the weight of responsibility he carried. The battle began at 0600 fleet time, with hegemony forces emerging from hyperspace in the precise formations that characterized their tactical doctrine. Their ships were larger and more technologically advanced than human vessels, equipped with weapons that could vaporize planets and defenses that had never been breached by conventional forces. On paper, it should have been a massacre. What the aliens hadn't accounted for was the human tendency to ignore mathematical impossibilities when survival was at stake. Marcus's tactical display showed enemy formations that followed textbook patterns, predictable and elegant in their execution. Human formations were chaotic by comparison, ships scattered across impossible vectors with no apparent coordination. To alien observers, it looked like panic. To human commanders, it was poetry. The first phase of the battle went exactly as hegemony planners had predicted. Their superior firepower carved through human formations, destroying ships with clinical efficiency while taking minimal losses in return. Alien commanders must have felt satisfaction as their projections proved accurate, confirming their belief in technological superiority over human desperation. The second phase began when human ships stopped fighting by alien rules. Damaged vessels, rammed into enemy formations instead of retreating, their nuclear cores turned into improvised weapons that could cripple ships 10 times their size. Supply freighters deployed hidden weapon systems while medical ships revealed themselves as disguised assault craft. Every assumption about human behavior proved fatally incorrect. Marcus watched the tactical display with professional satisfaction, as his old high school lessons in survival proved applicable to interstellar warfare. Just as he had learned to use the environment against his tormentors, humanity was using space itself as a weapon. Asteroid fields became minefields, gravity wells became traps, and the vacuum that should have been neutral territory became humanity's ally. The turning point came when the hegemony flagship, confident in its defensive superiority, moved to deliver what they believed would be the killing blow to human resistance. Marcus's ship was among those that seemed to be retreating in disorder, drawing the alien dreadnought into a carefully prepared kill zone. The same tactical principles that had allowed him to survive high school bullies scaled up to galactic warfare. The coordinated strike came from 6 directions simultaneously, human ships emerging from concealment to deliver devastating close-range attacks. The hegemony flagship's shields, designed to deflect energy weapons at long range, proved vulnerable to kinetic impacts at point-blank distance. Marcus personally delivered the shot that breached their command deck, ending centuries of alien arrogance with human precision. The battle's outcome shocked military analysts across the galaxy. A numerically inferior human fleet had not only defeated, but annihilated a hegemony force that should have been unbeatable. Alien survivors would carry tales of human savagery and tactical unpredictability back to their homeworlds, adding another chapter to the growing legend of human military capability. In the aftermath, as rescue operations continued and damage assessments were compiled, Marcus received a priority communication from Earth. The message was from his old high school principal, who had apparently been following news coverage of the battle with professional interest in his former students' achievements. "Marcus," Principal Martinez said in his recorded message, "I wanted you to know that we've decided to rename our athletic field in your honor. The Marcus Chen Memorial Stadium seemed appropriate, though I suppose we should wait to make sure you survive long enough to attend the dedication ceremony." The dark humor was appreciated, though Marcus suspected he wouldn't be attending any more civilian ceremonies for the foreseeable future. The hegemony defeat would prompt other alien powers to reassess their relationships with humanity, leading to either diplomatic overtures or preemptive strikes. Either way, human military forces would remain busy for years to come. Standing in his quarters aboard the Defiance, Marcus looked out at the stars that had once seemed impossibly distant from his bedroom window in New Haven. He had traveled further than any of his classmates could imagine, not just in distance but in purpose and capability. The boy who had been dismissed as a loser had become one of humanity's primary defenders against galactic threats. His final message to Earth was brief and professional, a status report that would be forwarded through official channels to families waiting for news of their children. He included no personal communications, no messages for former classmates who were suddenly interested in claiming association with his success. That chapter of his life was closed, replaced by responsibilities that made high school drama seem quaint by comparison. The scared teenager who had left Earth to escape his tormentors was gone, transformed by necessity into something the galaxy had learned to respect and fear. He had found his real family among the stars, forged by shared sacrifice and mutual dependence. The reunion had been a necessary closure, but his future lay with the men and women who trusted him with their lives in humanity's ongoing struggle for survival. As the fleet prepared for its next mission, Marcus reflected on the strange journey that had brought him from victim to protector. He had never gotten the vindication he once craved, never proved his worth to those who had dismissed him. Instead, he had discovered something better, the knowledge that their opinions had never mattered at all. Real strength came not from conquering your past but from outgrowing the need for its validation. The stars awaited, filled with threats and opportunities that would define humanity's future among the civilizations that had tried to contain them. Marcus Chen, former victim and current defender of human civilization, was ready for whatever came next. The galaxy had already learned to fear what humans could accomplish when pushed to their limits. Now they would learn what happened when humans stopped asking for permission to exist.